Okay, I'm going to tell you the birth story because I've had so many people ask about it that I figured I might as well make a video so I don't have to tell the story 45 million times. I hear my child. You're talking about me? So, here's the thing. At around 37 weeks, we found out that we had a breech baby, that she was head up and she's supposed to be head down, and that is not going to work out. So me, being my mother's daughter, I went and tried every single possible thing to turn that baby upside down. Turn around. We did chiropractic, acupuncture. I stood on my head. I was on an inversion table. I even tried the flashlight. Put the flashlight down there. You're like, go to the light, baby, go to the light. And I was convinced. I was like, I felt her move. I felt it move down. It was down. I'm like, I feel pressure down there. It's fine. She turned because I wanted to avoid the big C word. Yeah. Well, on my due date, at midnight, on my due date, my water broke. Yeah, I was laying on the sofa while my husband watched Mythbusters, and I was in such a deep, wonderful sleep for like 2 hours. He woke me up at midnight and was like, let's go to bed. We have to go to bed. So I was like, okay, I'll just go to the bathroom. And I was in the bathroom and I had, TMI, but I had like the bloody show, which is what my doula and my midwife told me to look out for. And I was like, oh, crap, maybe something's happening. And so I called my doula on the toilet. Yes, I have my phone. And so I'm like, well, I have this thing, the bloody show. Is it happening? And she's like, oh, yeah, wow, okay, so on your due date, that's funny. Just go to sleep. Take a nap because we're going to be at this a while. So I'm like, okay. So I was still on the phone with her and I stood up and my water broke and you can't really, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I've heard that happens. And I'm like, I think I just peed on myself or my water just broke. And she said, oh, you have to call the midwives. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, here we go. So I hung up with her and I called the midwives and I'm like, I think my water just broke. And they're like, on your due date? Are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, yes, and it's midnight. And so the midwife said because we'd had an ultrasound and the baby was breech, for safety reasons, I have to go into the hospital. Otherwise they would say just go, take a nap and call me, when your contractions start. You'll know when that happens. Instead, they're like, nope, you got to get to the hospital. Our hospital is an hour and a half away. Yes, we chose that one for a reason because it's awesome and the birth center was amazing. And plus, we had plenty of time, we thought. So it worked out well. So it was, at that point, it's like, 12:30 or something, 1:30. And we gathered things slowly and I had the bag packed already and stuff. So my husband got that all in the car and we're both kind of like, oh, it's happening. And so we drove over to the guest house down the road to get my mama, because my mama is here. And we were knocking on the door like, Mom, Mom. And it turns out she'd taken a Benadryl because she couldn't sleep, so she couldn't wake up. And so I'm down there going, Stella, Stella. And finally she comes out on the balcony. What? Oh my goodness, what is it? And we were like, I'm in labor. And can you go over to the house and be with Emma? That's our dog, because we don't leave our dog alone ever. Because we're that way. And so she gets up at 1:30 in the morning and drives over to our house to be with the baby dog while we go to the hospital. We're like, we'll call you and let you know how it's going. We get to the hospital and it's totally dead. There's nobody around. And we're like, the main entrance of the clinic we usually go to is totally like, it's got cones up and it's like shut down. And then there's the emergency room that's like kind of lit up. We're like, I guess we go to the emergency room and then go up to the 9th floor. I guess. And because we were going to go over all this that day. Yeah. And so we drive in front of the emergency room and it's totally quiet. Nobody's there. And there's the two entrances of the doors that are like, there's the first door and then there's a whole bay of wheelchairs. And then there's the second door to go into the hospital. So I'm like, well, I guess. And at this point, on the way there for the hour and a half, I started having contractions. So I got to labor for 5 hours. And boy, oh boy, contractions. Let me tell you something. I had studied hypnobirthing and was going to hypnobirthing classes. That's a good thing. That's a very helpful. So I was listening to my little hypnobirthing CD, and I was having contractions every 7 minutes, and I was like, and so we pulled up in front of the emergency room, and I was like, okay, I have 4 minutes before one of those thingamajiggers hit me. So drop me off here. I'll just waddle over to the uh, one of those wheelchairs, and you park and get all the stuff. So that was our plan. I got out, and I walked in to the first door, and I sat down on one of the wheelchairs, and I walked myself into the door, just like walking myself in, and there's nobody. I'm sitting there. I have a hoodie on that's like all zipped up, so you can kind of tell I'm pregnant. But I had a large adult diaper sticking out of my pocket, and I'm like walking myself in to the hospital. I'm just sitting there, and there's nobody. I'm like, oh, I'm looking at my. Actually, I don't have a watch. I have my phone. It's like I was looking at my phone to see. Okay, this thing is gonna hit me again. And this guy comes around, like kind of like a security guy at the window. Comes around like, can I help you? Crazy lady. I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna have a baby, and I'm gonna get hit with one of those thingamajiggers in another 3 minutes. Yeah. And he just looks at me like, I'm like, my husband's parking the car and bringing the bag. He's like, oh, okay. Do you need help? I'm like, I guess we're going to the ninth floor. He leaves, and again, I'm like, okay, I'm just waiting. And then this male nurse comes around the corner in his little scrubs, this RN, and he was like, can I help you? I must have looked insane. And so I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm about to have a kid. And he's like, okay. I'm like, my husband's parking the car. And he's like, oh. And then thank God my husband walks in with the bag. It's like baby bag and our bag. And then all of a sudden the nurse is like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh. And then I got hit with like, I'm like, dealing with my little meditation to take me through this lovely hardcore contraction. Yeah. Whoa. And so he's like, oh, I guess you're going to the ninth floor. So he pushes us to the ninth. He gets behind me to push the little, what thing I've been watching, the wheelchair. And my husband's got the bags. He's like, are you going to help me with the bags? And the guy's like, no, I'll just push the wheelchair. And my husband's like, oh, I guess you don't want to get tipped then. And obviously we're the funny couple. Like, obviously that was a joke. And they soon got it that we're the funny couple. And so we went up to the ninth floor, and all the nurses were there. My midwife was already there. And they're like, oh, the fun ones are here. So, and the nurse was just kind of like, these people are crazy. And so they immediately take us in to the checker room where they're going to check your vitals and, do this little thing, check how far you're dilated and all that shit. Oh my God. So they move us in there. And because I had had a breech baby, they do the ultrasound, and sure enough, her head is right under my rib cage. And then my doula arrived, and then we all had that like, you're going to have a C-section. And I had my little pouty moment. I was like all teary-eyed because that's not what I wanted. It's not my plan. I had not planned that. I planned like a total hypnobirthing birth. And now I have to have a C-section. I'm like, so they were all like, sorry. And we were all kind of weepy about it. And I was like, ooh. And the doctor came and scheduled it for 5 a.m. because of when I had eaten last. I will share a picture on my little blog about the last picture of me pregnant eating. And so we had to wait until 5 a.m., which went by so fast. They had all these tests and blah, blah, blah. And they have to prepare you for the operating room. And they had to get my husband into scrubs and get the little mask on and everything. And the only time we were separated was when they have to send me into the operating room and get me on the table and the whole thing. And I'm not happy about it, but I'm dealing. And I was like, and I'm walking in. with contraction. I'm still in labor, and I was like, have to walk to the operating room while I am going through a contraction. That's pretty difficult, if not impossible. So I made it to the operating room. I sit down on the table, and they had been looking for me to have a little thing so I could listen to my hypnobirthing CD and music and stuff that I'd had. I had a playlist, a hypnobirthing playlist, all put together with the autumns. And they were like, well, we can't find it. I'm like, don't worry. They have a radio going in there because I heard it, the radio happening. The moment I went into and sat down on the table, I realized that the radio in the operating room is playing our song. My husband and I sung from our wedding. I start bawling my face off. Like, literally, I'm like, that's our song. They're playing our song. Like, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And the nurses are looking at me like, freaking out, because thinking that I'm upset I'm having a C-section. They're like, it's okay. We do this all the time. And the anesthesiologist is like, it's all right. And he's asking me questions. Like, they ask you every 5 seconds, what's your date of birth and what's your name? And I'm like, and they're all like thinking, like they're all careful with me because I'm losing it. I'm like, no, it's our song, and that means that everything's going to be okay, and everything's going to be okay. And, my gosh, then the song, it was just towards the end, the song ends, right? And the next song that came on is literally, I kid you not, turn around every now and then. The whole turn around bright eyes. Are you kidding me? Then I start laughing. And now they think I'm really absolutely out of my mind. And they're like, why is she laughing? I'm like, don't you get it? The baby's breech. Turn around, bright eyes. Then the whole operating room breaks into laughing. Then they start singing it. It's so funny. Turn around as they're laying me down, strapping me in. Oh my God. And then that's whole, the surgery started. They brought my husband in. And I went through major surgery to get this little child out of me. And the only thing I heard from the other side of the curtain, because it was totally how it is on TV, the curtains are all around you. And I heard from the doctor, wow, she's huge. And then I heard, whoa, because apparently she shit on everybody. She shit on the doctor and all the nurses, just like this little... Yeah, and came out with the finger. Like, she's been giving me the finger since she was born. Every 5 seconds. I'm like, hello, how are you? Yeah, it's my kid. And so that's how that happened. It was amazing, and it was intense. And my water broke at midnight, and we had a baby at a couple minutes before 6 a.m. And by 7 a.m. she was nursing. And it was crazy beautiful. And then there was 4 rainbows, I kid you not, that went over the hospital. The second set was a double rainbow. And we caught a picture of the third one, the third set, because there was actually 4. It's just because the second was a double rainbow. And we caught a picture, and I'll share that. And oh my God, it was totally like, boo, it was so beautiful. So that's my little birthing story, and now I have a child. And there's my mommy and my child. Oh my gosh. Holding her. Because she's all... And there's my other child, Emma. Hi, Emma. No, she's sleeping. Yeah. So this is the life on the porch with my child. And I wanted to share my birth story with you because I know you've been asking about it. And I thank you for caring. And it was so sweet. And I'm not crying. I've been crying constantly since it happened because I'm overwhelmed with joy. I'm like, bah. I love you. Thank you. And hug everybody, just because.